in this video, we are going to look at finding the area of irregular shapes. So if you have a look at this shape, it's not a standard rectangle. So it's a little bit more tricky for us to find the area, but we can do it. So let's just step back and think, how do we work out the area of a rectangle? Well, what we need to do is, the first thing we need to understand is that if we're looking for area, that is a two-dimensional space. So we can no longer measure it in lines like we would a perimeter. We need to be able to find out how much space there is within this rectangle. So we want to know what this area is. And the way that we would do it is, instead of looking at centimetres, which is just a line, we think about, so that's a centimetre, we would be thinking about square centimetres. We're going to fill that space with square centimetres, and we write them like that to show they're squared. So to work out the area, what we need to do is see how many squares there are down, how many across, multiply them together, and that gives us the area. So the standard formula for area is length times width. Length is the longer side. So we do 7 multiplied by 4, and that gives us 28, and we must remember that it's square centimetres, and if you count up all these squares, you will find there are 28 of them. So it's nice and straightforward to find the area of a rectangle, and all we've got to remember is to put that little 2 to indicate that it's an area, and we're dealing with squares. So now let's come back to this shape. So this shape is slightly different because it's not just a standard rectangle, but what we can do is turn it into rectangles. So if I put a line across there, and let's make that black, then basically we've turned that shape into 2 rectangles. So we can work out the area of each, add them together, and that will give us the total area for the shape. But there's something we need to do first. We know, if we think of this shape as, let's call this shape 1, then we know that the length of it is 6, but we haven't got the width. But we can work it out, because if there to there is 7 and there to there is 3, then this must be 7 minus 3. So it's 4. So now we have the length and width of this rectangle. So we can do 4 times 6 equals 24. Good, so that's our first rectangle done. Now let's come up to this one, and here we've got the width, but we need this measurement, we need this length. But again, we can find this because from here to here is 6, that little bit there is 2, so this must be the difference, which means it's 4. So we now have the dimensions for our rectangle. 3 times 4 equals 12. And we can just add those 2 rectangles together. That can be our second rectangle. So 1 is 12. And let's assume it's centimetres. So we put square centimetres. And then our second rectangle is 24 square centimetres. So the total area of that shape is 36 square centimetres. So once we break it up into rectangles, very straightforward. Okay, let's just check it out using a different method and see if we get the same result. So I'm going to delete this and let's copy this over. Oops. And let's try a different method. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. You'll have to imagine this is a very straight line. Down and across, so that I've turned that into a big rectangle. And that rectangle, let's call it large rectangle, is a 6 by 7. So the area is 6 times 7, which is 42. And again, I'm going to put square centimetres. But there is a small rectangle missing. So I need to work out the area of the small rectangle, which is 3 times 2, and that's 6 square centimetres. And then I need to take that away because it's missing from the big rectangle. And that gives us an area of 36 square centimetres. And thankfully, that agrees with our first calculation. So we can be pretty sure we got it right. Okay, so that's the end of this video. I'm going to do a second one with examples where I will do each one and you can pause in between, have a go and then check your work.